How much could an Ouya cost, Michael? $10?
Welcome to Tech Tales. I'm Corbin Davenport,
I'm Katie Janzen.
and today we are talking about the Ouya, the microconsole thing that was a smash hit on Kickstarter and then kind of went nowhere, but it's still interesting, so we're still going to talk about it.
Speaking of smash hit, the favorite console of the Kool-Aid Man.
Hmm. Did you ever have an Ouya or anything of the sort?
I didn't have one, but I wanted one. I think I learned about it from Ben Heckendorn, or Ben Heck, who I followed for a really long time. He made like an Atari VCS portable and a bunch of other portable consoles and like one-handed game controllers and stuff. And I guess he had backed it and was like, "Oh, there's this thing. It's weird and cool. You check it out if you want." And that was kind of the most I ever heard of it. Oh, actually, no, that's not true because a developer I followed at the time named Sophie Holden talked about developing for it, and that was interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I have not used one or I think even seen one in real life. I remember the buzz around it when the Kickstarter went up and a little bit of news coverage after that, and then I think it just faded into the ether for me.
I remember thinking Towerfall seemed really cool, and I was excited for when the exclusivity period was over because I knew I probably wasn't going to get an Ouya by this point, but
Yeah, we will get to Towerfall. That comes up later. So you may be hearing the word microconsole, and you're like, what is that? Is that a console for ants? So this was a whole category of devices that kind of came up in the late 2000s, early 2010s, roughly. The idea was something that was lower power and more affordable than a standard home video game console. Kind of the sequel to those integrated
like the
basic
Jack specific,
yeah, like the
like
thing
40 Atari games thing.
yeah, you'd buy this little like piece of landfill plastic that had Pac-Man or whatever built into it, and you'd plug in the composite video cables in, and you just have a little game on there. And the microconsoles
Spider-Man's dick.
Yeah. It's the one where you grab SpongeBob's nose.
The one where you grab SpongeBob's nose is hilarious.
Yeah. There was one called OnLive, which was connected to the game streaming service of the same name. Yeah. Yeah. So you could stream games in the cloud, and they had a little box you could buy to plug into your TV to play it. And that had support for up to 4 controllers.
This was so crazy at the time because it required like really good internet, and it was not very standard to have really good internet in the United States at the time.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if that was like the first mass implementation of cloud gaming, but it was very early. That was years before Stadia or anything else like that.
I think it was the first one regular people might have heard of.
Yeah. And then another one was the PlayStation TV, which Sony initially released in Japan in 2013 and then later in North America in 2014. And that was a weird box because it was a PlayStation Vita without a touchscreen that you plugged into your TV. So it was like kind of a streaming box, but also you could play some Vita games on your TV.
None that required the like back touch surface, I imagine.
Yeah, none of those worked, but other ones did. And it was kind of this weird like budget alternative to a PS3 or PS4. And you could stream games from a PlayStation console if there was like another one.
I remember wanting a PlayStation TV at one point because it was a cheap way to play like a bunch of like indie games on your TV, which I loved because my computer was kind of crappy at the time, and I didn't want to buy a full PlayStation 4 to play like Towerfall or Nuclear Throne or Iconoclasts or The Binding of Isaac or something.
I remember they advertised it with like some of the Lego games, and I think Borderlands 2, there was a port of that. And then this is after the Ouya is released, but there was also the original NVIDIA Shield TV released in 2015.
Oh, yeah.
Which was kind of a console at the start. Like, there was some higher profile games ported to it, like Doom 3. But then that aspect kind of faded away, and it continued to this day as just a nice Android TV box.
Kind of like an Apple TV competitor.
Yeah, basically.
Have they really shifted away from gaming as a focus on the NVIDIA Shield devices?
Yeah, I mean, there's not, like... I don't think there's really games coming out for Android TV anymore. I don't think that's a thing.
Because the NVIDIA Shield had, like, the Chinese ports of Mario Galaxy, right?
Yeah, but only in China.
Mainland China.
Yeah, so that's all to say that microconsoles were kind of a market that was being tested around this time. And on July 10th, 2012, the Ouya console was revealed with a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. And I have the announcement video for us to watch.
Okay, great.
All right, let's go on 3, 2, 1, play.
I love video games, but more and more people are moving away from the television. There's a lot of focus today on the mobile and web platform. It's easier to develop games for those platforms than the television. It costs a lot of money, you have to work with established players in the space, and I've been trying to figure out how do we get them back to it. Ouya is a new game console for the television that's built on Android, open source technology. It's an inexpensive game console for gamers. All the games are free to try. Anybody that wants to develop a game for a television, we allow them the ability to do this. I've been a part of the game industry for a really long time. In the early days of gaming, you could take your Apple IIe, write your own programming, and take your game to market.
The console business as it is today is completely closed to the independent developer.
The process overhead for console development is really just too much for us.
There's a lot of hurdles for developers to get games onto the television. Developing is extremely expensive. I love the television, and I want those games on the television. We wanted to make a great product. I went out to find the best people that can do it, and that's Yves Behar and the Fuse Project.
Over the years, we've worked on a lot of projects that take a certain technology and make it available to many. I mean, the $100 laptop is one, and the Jambox, for example. We like to use all the different parts of design, fuse them together, whether it's industrial design or user experience.
The most important part of this to us is the controller.
We really focus a lot on what gamers are looking for. Precise controls, tactility, right sizing. What makes Ouya different and gives it the potential of changing the gaming environment is you're able to build things right from the start. You don't have to pay outrageous amounts of money for a dev kit. You don't have to have a lot of credentials, just good ideas.
The more we have something like this open console that can break that, it's going to open it up for a new business segment for the independent developers.
Since it's Android based, we have a great 3D port of Cannibal that's on Android already. That would be really fun to see up on the TV.
We have a prototype and it works. We'll have all the game genres you love. Shooters, platformers, sports, and RPGs. We'll have games from major game publishers and indies too. We'll have a full store of games, all free to play. Minecraft is going to be on it, and Twitch TV, so you can watch StarCraft and League of Legends.
This is the perfect hybrid to have something that's inexpensive, it's open, and it comes with a fantastic controller.
It's open for hackers that want to tweak the box and make it their own. This is a big undertaking. Effectively, we're trying to disrupt an established industry. It takes a lot of guts and courage. Oh, I wasn't a female, I'd say big balls. We've raised money from friends and family, but it takes more. Kickstarter is a phenomenal place where early ideas can get supported by those people that are going to want to use it. And this product will not happen without their support. And when we raise this money, it means that we have arrived, that there is a need for an open game console, and that there is support from gamers and developers alike. And you're the signal to the world that this is wanted.
I forgot she said female.
Yeah, this is definitely a very 2012 video. Down to like how they keep saying the television. I love the television. I want your games on the television. I feel like this is totally flipped. Where like when we're talking about a hardware TV, it's always TV, and when you're talking about like over the top subscription television programming, that's when the word television is invoked today to refer to programming versus the device, which is so interesting that it's like kind of, I mean, they've always been conflated because one means the other, right? But I think that's interesting.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that stand out to me in this video. Well, first of all, the person talking for most of it is Julie Ehrman, who is the founder of Ouya, and I believe the CEO for the entirety of its existence. Kind of her main point is that the trend of gaming is shifting away from the TV, supposedly. I don't actually know if that was true, but it is true that this was around the time when smartphone gaming was really taking on and eating away at the market for standalone handhelds, right? Like this is when, like, the 3DS was starting to fade away, the Vita, and smartphone gaming was for most people taking its place. Obviously later the Nintendo Switch comes in and PC handhelds and whatnot, but
I think there was this kind of, in that generation of consoles, this thought that games consoles were going to go away. Like, I remember this being like a constant refrain that, like, oh, this might be the last console generation. And I've heard that again today with like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, but it seems a lot weaker and more like, oh, we've been here before, in a way that's usually there's not that kind of memory for. That it feels just a lot less dogmatic, or there seemed to be this thought that like the Wii and smartphones, would end gaming consoles, and that gaming would just be everywhere. And it kind of is, but games consoles didn't go away. They just changed a little bit.
Right. Yeah, they're more PC like, but I think there's always going to be a market for thing you plug into TV to play games.
I do love a couple of things in this video. First of all, I love how in this era every Kickstarter video had to kind of explain what Kickstarter is. I mean, not what it is, but like how it works. That's funny. Because, like, oh, this might be the first Kickstarter video anyone is seeing. Like, no one knows what crowdfunding is. And this is after, I believe, there have been some high-profile Kickstarters by this point. I think Ouya proves to be a very high-profile one, at least as far as games are concerned. But
yeah, the one I remember before this, and I just looked it up to make sure it was before, was Pebble. That was in 2012.
That was in 2012 also? Okay, so they're very contemporaneous.
Yeah, this was prime Kickstarter tech. This video is just kind of showing mostly them designing the controller, which is funny because of what comes afterwards.
I think it's really funny how when they show the face buttons on the controller, they all have an O on them.
This video and the other ones we'll talk about are in the description if you want to watch them. But basically, this is a small cube-shaped console, like TV box, with a flat top and a rounded base. It measures 3 inches across, so pretty small.
It's too bad Steve Jobs couldn't live to see the Ouya. Man loved cubes.
He did. Especially cubes that didn't work well, like this one.
Amazing.
The video didn't really talk about the hardware specifications. This was powered by the NVIDIA Tegra 3 chipset, which was also a chip used in... I don't know if the NVIDIA Shield used this or that was later, but this was used in some tablets and other TV boxes.
Interesting. So this is a direct precursor to the Switch chip.
Yeah. The original Switch used, I think it was called the Tegra X1. It was a later version of this architecture. It was also an ARM chip built by NVIDIA. I think my Asus Transformer pad back in the day had a Tegra 3. Other hardware here included 1 gigabyte of RAM, 8 gigabytes of internal storage, an HDMI port with up to 1080p output, Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN, which is Wi-Fi 4, Bluetooth Low Energy 4.0, a single USB 2.0 port, and Ethernet LAN. So not too shabby for 2012.
I'm always like jump scared by looking at old 2012 storage sizes and like 8 gigabytes of internal storage, and I'm like, dear God.
Yeah, and like every single one of the apps on my phone is a gigabyte for some reason now.
Yeah.
So that would fill up quickly. But they hadn't invented React Native yet, so that was still okay. The controller had kind of a similar layout to an Xbox controller with dual analog sticks, a D-pad, and 2 sets of back triggers. There's also a touchpad in the center, like a PS4 or PS5 controller.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then the software was based on Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich, but without the Google Play Store or other Google services. So Ouya had to provide its own game store and software platform.
Ouya walked so Huawei could run.
So as Ouya said in that video, the console was also unique because it was built to be an open platform. So unlike with traditional consoles where if you want to make games, you need to get a dedicated development kit that the company would sell to you, and they're usually very expensive, and you have to have industry connections to get those. But just like any Android phone or Android tablet, you can just test your games on the normal box.
I think I remember hearing the line, every device is a dev kit.
Yeah.
And I remember that being really compelling to me as like a younger developer.
Yeah, and even if you weren't doing development on it necessarily, it was still an open platform. They said it was easy to root the Android system. I don't know how easy that ended up being. And it wouldn't void the warranty either. And then besides the games, there were some media applications that were promised, like the video showed the Twitch app. There was also a Vivo app that was announced later, which...
Oh man, Vivo.
I didn't know they ever had an app or were like a thing that existed besides or outside of YouTube licensing, but there was an app at one point.
It's crazy how we never talk about Vivo anymore. When like around this time, probably anytime you talked about subscriber numbers or like what are the biggest YouTube channels, it was always like, these are the biggest channels besides Vivo channels, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think a lot of those have just kind of slowly, quietly rebranded to just being the name of the artist as the display name. Or sometimes they were consolidated. Like I think Daft Punk stuff is still under one for their label, which is like EMI Music.
Yeah, it still exists in some capacity. I don't know to what extent. Another difference between the Ouya and other consoles was that the store was all digital, so no cartridges or discs or anything, and there were no licensing or publishing fees for developers. The only requirement was that if you were publishing a game on the Ouya, it had to have a free component. So there had to be a demo you could play, or like some like base game that would have a paid unlock if you want that.
I forgot about this.
Yeah. And then Ouya received a 30% cut of digital revenue. So in line with what Apple and Google are doing in the countries where they have not been legally forced to have lower rates.
Well, and at this point, this is what they're charging. I don't even think Apple's done their backdoor negotiation with Netflix to give them 15%, whereas like every other App Store customer or App Store developer is 30%.
Yeah, this was before a lot of the public fights over revenue cuts on
because
App Stores.
Remind me, when did Steam Greenlight launch? Is Steam Greenlight a thing by this point? Because I remember for a long time, like the way Steam worked was you had to network your way into being on Steam.
That was apparently 2012.
Okay, so again, around the same time.
Everything is happening in 2012. That's what I'm learning from this.
2012, a big year for gaming.
Okay, so we got a micro console that has a bunch of games and an open platform what does this thing cost? What's the value proposition here?
How much could an Ouya cost, Michael? $10?
The Ouya was priced at $95 for early backers.
$95.
$95. The regular retail price would be $99. And there was a limited edition brushed metal version that was $140 if you wanted the really cool one. Now, I don't remember what anything else cost at this time. So I looked up Walmart's Black Friday 2011 ad to see kind of what things were costing on sale for comparison.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were shopping on Black Friday, the Black Friday before the Ouya was released, you wanted a deal for your holiday gifts and whatnot, you could get a Nintendo Wii for $100, and adjusted for inflation in 2026, that was $145.
Is this the decontented Wii Mini by this point, or is
No,
this the full fat Wii?
Normal Wii. Normal Wii was $100.
Wow.
There was also the 4 gigabyte hard drive Xbox 360 with a Kinect for $200. Adjusted for inflation in 2026, that is $290. There was also the PlayStation 3 with a 160 gigabyte hard drive for $200.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Did you say the Xbox had a 4 gigabyte hard drive?
Yes.
And the PS3 had a 160 gigabyte hard drive?
Yes.
Dear God.
Yeah. But the Xbox has a Kinect, and isn't that worth so much more than extra space?
No!
So, comparing those prices with the Ouya at $100 or adjusted for inflation, $145, that's a tough proposition. If I was in the market for a game console, and again, these were like lowest prices at the time on sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's when a lot of people were buying things. So, if I have $100, I mean, though that Wii for $100 looks pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. I'd get the Wii.
Yeah.
Especially in 2011, I think it would have had Mario Galaxy by now, because I think that was 2000. That was 2007, I believe.
Yeah, it might even have had Mario Galaxy 2 by this point.
Yeah, that's difficult competition for a whole new device, and the Ouya does go on sale later as well. But
yeah, I definitely remember $100 game console, like that four-word phrase, $100 game console, Panasonic Blu-ray. $100 game console being bandied around a lot for the Ouya as like the Ouya is a $100 game console. You can get a $100 game console.
Obviously, the games for those full consoles are more expensive, so
Of course.
there's that to factor in. But
And not a required free component.
yeah, and again, I adjusted for inflation, that $145 Wii compared to I don't know how much a PS5 is now, like $700, something like that. So at the time of the crowdfunding campaign, the Ouya only had prototype hardware and an unfinished controller design. They had not started production, and they had secured funding from some private investors before the campaign, and they estimated they would start shipping the consoles in March of 2013, about 8 months after the campaign started. So this campaign was a big deal. The Ouya raised $1 million in just over 8 hours, and it was the 8th project in Kickstarter history to reach that milestone at all, and it hit that in 8 hours.
To reach $1 million at all.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
It also beat Kickstarter's site-wide record for dollars pledged in a single day, and the time record for a single project reaching $1 million.
What was their funding goal?
The initial goal was $950,000.
Okay.
So, going slightly past that initial goal in 8 hours. The previous record holder for crowdfunding was the adventure game Double Fine Adventure.
Okay, I was going to ask about Double Fine Adventure / Broken Age.
Which raised $1 million, but that took 17 hours and 30 minutes.
But they also had a far more modest funding goal, as I recall.
And then also the original Pebble Watch, which was before this, passed $1 million in 27 hours.
Wow.
So the fundraising campaign ended on August 9th of 2012 with a total of $8.6 million.
Dear God.
Raised from over 63,000 backers. In December 2012, the first prototype units were sent out to developers, and the software store was opened for app and game submissions. In February 2013, Ouya announced that the console would be sold through Amazon, GameStop, Target, Best Buy, and other retailers after Kickstarter backers received their units. So there's a lot of interest in this from traditional retail channels as well. And then this is also around the time where they make their first oopsie. So that same month in February, the founder, Julie Ehrman, told Engadget in an interview, quote, "Our strategy is very much similar to the mobile strategy. There will be a new Ouya every year. There will be an Ouya 2 and an Ouya 3, end quote. And then when PC Mag asked for more details, the company declined to confirm those plans, only saying, quote, "We are currently focused on the launch of the Ouya in June and will provide more information on timing of system updates in the future," end quote.
Yeah, talking about your plans for successive generations of device before you've even launched the Rev 1 is a little bit crazy.
That's a bad thing to do. You don't do that. It's so much of a bad thing that there is a name for that called the Osborne effect, where if you confirm that there is like a better version of your product coming soon, you kill demand for the current generation of your device. Because everyone's like, well, I didn't get one on Kickstarter, and they say there's a better one coming in, maybe 9 months, 10 months, depending on, when they're starting the count from a year. So I'll just wait for that one.
Yep, and it's like a super Osborne effect, because I think even the original Osborne incident was they were announcing a successor to their current offering. This is announcing a successor to a device that is not available yet.
So, one other thing about the hardware production is the first production run of the console had several names engraved on the side, representing everyone who signed up for the $10,000 Angel List tier in the crowdfunding campaign. So some Ouya consoles had like some of the backers written on them.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Some of the names included 402, which was the username for Robert Bowling, who at the time was a creative strategist at the Call of Duty studio Infinity Ward.
Oh, wow.
Also Brian Fargo, who was one of the founders at Interplay Productions and In Exile Entertainment, who worked on like the Bard's Tale series and the first Fallout game.
And was in the video.
Yeah, he was in the video. He was one of the people they reached out to like say nice things about the Ouya. They also had Notch, the nickname for Marcus Pearson, who you might think was the creator of Minecraft, but that was actually Hatsune Miku. That's a very common mistake.
All while having a flourishing music career. Just what a gal.
Yeah. Also, Keith Inhofe, which was the username for software developer Eric Newport. There were also a few game studios who backed in and had their names on it, including Yoda One, Handy Games, and Head Up Games. And there was also Face It, which was an esports platform. So all of those people or groups backed the higher tier, and they got their name on some of the early consoles. And then during E3 2013, Ouya set up an unofficial outdoor space outside of the Los Angeles Convention Center where E3 was being held, and E3's organizers called the cops on them.
Oh my God.
So we've got another video to watch.
This was a legendary E3 because I believe this is also the year where you get the announcement of the Xbox One and that it'll have this always on DRM stuff And I remember hearing a story that behind the scenes at PlayStation, they were like running, screaming with their heads, like chickens with their head cut off, to get out a video that for E3, like replacing or modifying their original offering. That's like, you can play used games.
Yeah, but obviously this was the craziest thing.
Truly just one for the books.
Yeah. This is a video from IGN News from E3 2013. We'll go on 3, 2, 1, go.
IGN News is brought to you by SpeedStick. Don't sweat it, handle it.
What's up, everybody? Marty here with IGN News. The Entertainment Software Association, the company which owns and operates the E3 Expo, called the Los Angeles Police Department yesterday in an attempt to shut down Ouya's public presence at E3 2013. Julie Ehrman, founder of the Ouya console, informed IGN that the police visit was just another event in an ongoing conflict with the ESA. Ouya had their console on display in a lot across the street from the Los Angeles Convention Center, which is the home of E3. But at 9 a.m. Tuesday morning, the ESA rented out the spaces in front of Ouya's display and parked a semi-truck trailer directly blocking the view of Ouya Park. In response, the Ouya team rented out the spots in front of the ESA's truck and used the spaces to display various Ouya banners. Following this action, the LAPD showed up at the lot and asked to see the company's permits. After determining that everything was in order, the cops ultimately left without taking any further action.
We announced that we were going to have Ouya Park that was open to the public over a month ago. Our location was identified. What we were planning on doing was identified. We would have loved to have worked with them this year, and next year we will.
Ehrman and the rest of the Ouya team intend to tackle the second day of E3 2013 by increasing their street team presence.
We have had a great flow of traffic today. A lot of developers and gamers showing up to talk to each other, to play great games. The experience yesterday actually has caused more people to come and check out Ouya, which at the end of the day is all we could hope for.
Ouya Park is located across the street from E3 and features developer-hosted hands-on gameplay demos, music, and free beer.
Ouya Park is open every single day of E3 from 9 to 7. We have happy hour from 4 to 7 with free beer and K-Rock DJing live, so come on down and play great games.
There's still a lot of E3 to go. We'll keep bringing you all the news, hands-on demos, and impressions with full live coverage of E3 2013. So keep it locked. This is IGN.
So Ouya and the organizers of the E3 event had some sort of kerfuffle, which resulted in Ouya setting up this outdoor area outside the convention. And this is also how most conventions work, is like they want everything in like their building where you're, you know, paying for a space and whatnot. So not really surprising that there was some fighting going on with them setting up a booth just outside. You can see in that video there are some police officers who rolled by in their like bike things to check out. Nothing really particularly intimidating or anything. After this, Ouya posted photos of those guys like posing with the Ouya staff, like giving them a thumbs up and holding up like an Ouya shirt. And the tweet said, quote, "I think that we know which side these specific cops were on. Ouya rolls with the LAPD."
Oh my god.
So this does mean that ACAB includes Ouya. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Pretty disappointing.
I can't believe she said, "and next year we will," about this organization you're currently in an adversarial conflict with. That just, oh, next year it'll be all good. Like
next year we'll be besties. It's fine. It's just
not
a little.
We're in
little
talks
fight.
to come to an understanding. Like
no, because the Ouya is going to be so big that they'll want to work with us. They won't have a choice. We will have destroyed the game console industry.
It's crazy to see someone having this much visibility and having this little like media training or media savvy about like not talking about future stuff. Not necessarily to the level of Apple of we don't comment on future products, but
right. Julie is repeatedly saying things that she probably should. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
Finally, the Ouya was released to the general public on June 24th of 2013. A lot of the games available at launch were ports of existing mobile titles. Some of the games included The Bard's Tale, Final Fantasy III, and Shadowgun, which was like a FPS game on phones and tablets. And the store had a lot of emulators available, which was nice. So this was like a pretty decent alternative to setting up a Raspberry Pi or a home theater PC with those emulators.
I believe at this time the Raspberry Pi was still also pretty underpowered for some later. I mean, I think you could do NES for sure, but I think even SNES there might have been some challenging titles.
Yeah, it was early days for the Raspberry Pi, and also like not just in hardware, but also the software ecosystem. It wasn't as easy to flash an OS on there that was well built and play some games. So that was certainly compelling for the Ouya. Because it was Android based, you could sideload Android APKs. It just had to work with the controller, or you could connect a mouse and keyboard. I don't know if only USB or if that worked over USB and Bluetooth, but those are all options. And as far as like outside of games, there was the Twitch app, there was a TuneIn Radio app, but there was not Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, YouTube, Vudu, all of these other media and streaming apps at the time that would have been useful to have. Also, by the time of the public release, some Kickstarter backers still didn't have their consoles. Those people were understandably annoyed that they could go to a store and buy the Ouya, but they had not got the ones that they had ordered months ago. Ouya did apologize to those people and give them a store credit of $13.37. Which is like, why are you getting cute with the apology? Like, we don't need to be doing that.
Not to mention, like, giving a fractional amount of having like an amount of cents in a digital store where you can't take your money back out is the most infuriating shit in the world.
Yeah. Again, it's just like this company is pretty silly.
They're getting goofy with it.
They're getting goofy with it, unfortunately.
Derogatory.
In brackets, derogatory. So I've got some snippets from Ouya reviews for us to read. This was part of IGN's review by Scott Lowe. They said, quote, "Under the hood, the Ouya has a gig of RAM, 8 gigs of local storage, and runs on NVIDIA's Tegra 3 processor, a generation behind the latest model, the Tegra 4. While more than capable of running 2D platformers and even some more taxing 3D titles like Shadowgun at 720p or 1080p, performance is completely inconsistent. Some games run smoothly, others start to get choppy during action sequences and firefights. The system even struggles to handle the load of the primary UI at times, freezing up or producing a noticeable delay while scrolling. In its attempt to merge the realms of mobile games and traditional consoles, the Ouya fails to do anything as well as its smartphones or console competitors. While many of its issues can be resolved with time and future software updates, the fundamental question of utility remains. In a market where Sony and Microsoft are embracing independent publishing and mobile games are becoming more advanced with gamepad add-ons that bring precise controls to the experience, why would you want an Ouya? Fortunately, for those curious and willing to endure its flaws, the $99 price tag is manageable. Everyone else should wait until future versions." End quote.
Everyone else should wait for future versions is pretty harsh.
Yeah, it's not great. There were a lot of reviews that did not like the controller, but I'm just going to read from one of those. This was part of PC Mag's review written by Will Greenwald. It said, quote, "The controller sounds nice on paper, but it's sadly close to being outright junk. The touchpad is the worst touchpad I've ever used. It's oversensitive but unresponsive, making the cursor fly around the screen with only little concern for what my finger is doing. It doesn't click, and it takes patience to tap the touchpad just right to make it register as a tap and not a swipe. The face buttons are nice and responsive, but the shoulder buttons and direction pad feel wiggly, and the analog sticks are overly loose and prone to dead zones and snapback. I wanted to like the Ouya. A $100 Android-based game console with the gamepad seems like a great idea. However, even though it's been released as a retail product, it's just not ready yet. It's held back by a mediocre controller and a software interface that, at the time of launch, is unacceptable. Unless you're willing to go to developer-like extents to load software on the Ouya, it simply isn't open enough, and the game library isn't enough to justify it. Its 3D graphics aren't particularly great, even when compared with smartphones, and its controller is disappointing. We could revise the Ouya's rating in the future if the company fixes its myriad of software emissions. For now, though, unless you're dedicated and technically savvy, it's just not worth it. End quote.
Wow.
Yeah, the controller not being great comes up in pretty much every review of this, which is wild because like half the video from that Kickstarter was them carefully crafting the controller out of like wooden blocks.
And I will say, I did always think that the shape of the Ouya controller was really appealing.
Yeah, it again, there's like pictures and videos of this linked in the description, but if you're just listening, it is like vaguely Xbox 360 controller, but like sort of more flat, and the side grips extend much further down away from the gamepad. I've got a snippet from Eurogamer's review by Damian McFerrin. They said, quote, "The console's online store offers a selection of games, all of which are free to download and play thanks to the manufacturer's stipulation that all Ouya content offers free demos or free-to-play elements. For example, the Endless Runner Cannibalt HD has a credit system which is renewed each day with additional credits awarded for reaching 5,000 meters in-game. Paying cash for the full version removes this limitation, as well as offering other bonuses such as a different soundtrack and classic 2D visuals. It's a mechanic which means you can jump straight into the action and decide for yourself if a game is worthy of your cash, but there are issues here too. There's no indication on the store listing page of how much each game really costs. You only become notified at the point of purchase within the game itself.
Ooh.
This is partly down to the fact that many of the games don't expect you to shell out for the full version once you've sampled the demo because you're already playing the full version and are expected to throw money at in-app purchases which grant more credit to items or time." And then they say, "Much was made of the news that retro gaming emulators would be available on the Ouya store from day one, with critics pointing out that the system, which was supposed to be challenging companies like Nintendo, would allow users to illegally download and play classic SNES and N64 titles. At the time of writing, SNES 9X, Super GNES, and Muppin 64 Plus are all available to download from the Ouya store, and more likely to be released in the near future." End quote. Which, Muppin 64 is a throwback. I remember having that on my Android phones of the time with a very cheap gamepad, and that was pretty cool. That was a good gaming experience.
I don't think I ever used that one. I think Project 64 was the first one I used. Yeah, was the interface shown in the marketing video like the real interface, or was that like a slick
I don't know if that was like ever the actual interface. It looks similar, so that was either like a example or an initial version. But yeah, some of these reviews, and again, all the reviews are linked in the show notes, so you can go check them out. But the console interface does kind of remind me of Microsoft Metro aesthetic, or like the early Zune with like very big text and like scrolling pages. It looks clean. Again, apparently from the reviews, it didn't work well, but you know, it looked nice. Not great reviews, not going well. Kind of an issue if you're selling a brand new game platform and your controller is not good.
We are beginning to have reasons to say, "Oh no."
And thankfully, there were some improvements that rolled out. By November 2013, there were 500 games total available for the Ouya, and after release there were a few OS updates that rolled out, including one that added full support for external storage, so you could use that USB 2.0 port for files or ROMs for your emulators or something like that. And I don't know if it ever got an update past Android 4.0, and at this point that was over 3 years old, so not ideal. The Ouya did go on occasional sales. I saw one article where briefly it was on a flash sale for $60 in December of 2013. So you could potentially get one for significantly less than that $99 price point.
The price of one game.
Yeah, exactly. On top of the platform and like the limited amount of games and the hardware, This was a difficult platform for developers as well. It was obviously very accessible, but because it was this new console that had received not great reviews at launch, the total market wasn't that big. Towerfall, one of the most anticipated exclusive games and like kind of the main game for this console for its lifetime, like the big seller, reached 2,000 purchases at $15 within the first few weeks of the console's release. The game's creator, Matty Thorson, said that was, quote, surprisingly high for a new game on a new console. So sales for that one were pretty decent. Most other games didn't hit that. There was another game called Nimble Quest that had 6,508 downloads by some point, like a few weeks after the console's release. I wasn't sure exactly what timing. And out of those 6,000 downloads, only 122 purchases for the full version. So that is a conversion rate of 1.8%. People are buying the full game.
Not great, Bob.
Not great. And then one other example game was Wind Up Night by a developer called Robot Invader that had around 15,000 downloads, and out of that, only 150 purchases. 1% of the people trying your game are buying the full version.
I'm not a marketing specialist, but I'm given to understand that these types of conversion rates are considered poor.
It's not good. It's not good, especially if you're obviously the developer taking the risk in making these games, and also if you're Ouya, because you're getting 30% cut of that very limited revenue. There was also this thing called the Free the Games Fund, which created several controversies. How this worked was if a developer made a crowdfunding campaign for their new game, I'm not sure if it had to be on Kickstarter necessarily, but it had to be a crowdfunded video game that they were launching.
Mm-hmm.
And if that campaign reached at least $50,000, and if the game promised at least 6 months of exclusivity for the Ouya console, the Ouya company would match those raised funds up to $250,000.
Jeez.
So potentially a great way to get exclusives and ensure that those exclusives are like a thing people are excited about if your crowdfunded game, raises at least $50,000. However, several developers were accused of donating to themselves to receive the Ouya matching funds. There was one game called Elementary My Dear Holmes, where Kickstarter suspended the campaign because of they were allegedly doing that. There was another game called Grid Iron Thunder that had at least 3 anonymous $10,000 donations in the final hours of the campaign, which looked kind of suspicious, and Ouya did not provide matching funds to that game. When this was reported, Julie Erdman told Wired, quote, over 40 developers have reached out to us and expressed interest in the program, so we're going to continue to do it. We're not going to let bad apples ruin the whole bunch, end quote.
Oof.
Again, keep in mind, Ouya was released to the general public in June of 2013. In February of 2014, not even a year later, Ouya released an upgraded model with a matte black casing.
MKBHD is psyched.
Yeah. A slightly updated controller and it doubled the storage from 8 gigs to 16 gigs. So looks mostly the same. The controller looks the same. They claim it had better gamepad sticks and buttons with a faster response time, but basically the same design.
Interesting. I don't remember ever seeing this version.
Probably because most people stopped caring about the Ouya by this point.
This isn't just any Ouya.
It isn't like the one that existed prior.
Yeah.
So there was the normal Ouya, and then there was that brushed metal one that some of the Kickstarter people got. And then also before this, I forgot to mention there was a limited edition white model. So they were doing the early 2010s thing of making a bunch of color variants of their console to boost sales. Yeah, so that was fun.
This is sort of a weird precursor to what we'll eventually see many years later with the half-step consoles, like the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X and S.
This was priced at $129 in the US, so slightly higher than the original $99. So that was February 2014. In May of 2014, Ouya gave up on releasing new hardware and pivoted to software. Basically, its plan was to take its operating system and game app store and market it to smart TV makers and set-top boxes. So again, in the way that like Android TV exists now, or now it's called Google TV.
It'll be something else next month.
Yeah, Roku OS, all these platforms where like there's a company that makes the software and then anyone making a TV or a set-top box or whatever licenses that. So that's what Ouya was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of envisioned keeping the Ouya box as like a reference design, but like they weren't going to try to sell new hardware products anymore. I like this quote from Julie Ehrman in The Verge. She said, quote, "What makes Ouya is not the physical hardware, but the fact that it is made for games built for a TV," end quote. Which it is largely not, and that was the problem. These are mostly smartphone games, Julie.
Saying Ouya is not about the hardware when it's been all about the hardware is crazy.
8 months ago, it was only about the hardware. We showed you a minute of sculpting controllers. So we can already kind of see Ouya having monetization problems. The following month in June, they start testing an all-access package, which is kind of like a early Game Pass. So they made this thing where you pay $60 and you can play every single Ouya game for 12 months.
Wow. Did you say for 20 months?
For 12 months.
For 12 months.
The idea was that this would eventually be like an annual subscription probably, but it was started as a test, so they didn't let you renew it after that. I don't think it ever became a subscription because of what comes afterwards.
And these are still just downloads, right? This isn't like an on-live thing.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And then in June 2015, so skipping ahead about a year, Ouya officially ended hardware production. So there were no more devices being sold. The next month, the remaining software business was purchased by Razer for an undisclosed amount.
Oh.
So by this point, Razer already had a similar product, the Razer Forge TV. This was another microconsole running Android, and it wanted to merge the game stores and platforms for the Ouya and the Razer Forge.
The Razer 5G.
Yeah. They were giving existing Ouya owners a discount on the Forge if they wanted like an upgrade path. When this happened, there was a new controversy about the Games Fund because by this point, a few game developers were still waiting on their matched funds from Ouya for that fund, and Razer would not pay them. So I'm going to read part of this article from Engadget by Jessica Condit. It says, quote, "Now that Razer is officially purchasing Ouya, all of this cash is in question, and the developers involved are not happy. One developer who wishes to remain anonymous said, Razer/Ouya's insistence that these deals are gone is causing us to have to majorly restructure our plans leading up to release. This developer is owed more than $30,000 from Ouya's Free the Games fund. Razer reached out to the studio in mid-July to say the deal was off. The above developer signed an updated contract with Ouya earlier this year that included a clause regarding the company's potential bankruptcy or insolvency. The clause states that either party can void the agreement if one files a petition in bankruptcy, reorganization, or similar proceeding, among other circumstances. The developer says, from what I can tell, Ouya has made no effort as of yet to take the actions described in this section of the contract. Rather, Razer has simply told us that they didn't purchase the part of Ouya that deals with the Free the Games fund."
Wow. This is why making like a crowdfunding matching fund so early in this, when you don't have your financial footing yet, is insane.
Yeah. After this got some press attention, Razer promised to honor all of the Free the Game fund payments, which amounted to $600,000 in total. And Razer CEO said he didn't realize Ouya had outstanding debts to developers, which I don't know if that means that like he personally didn't, or the Razer was not aware when they were buying
This
Ouya.
sounds like either or perhaps both a failure on the part of Razer's due diligence in scoping out Ouya for acquisition, or Ouya's communication with Razer in preparing themselves for acquisition, both of which are hilarious corporate malpractice.
Yeah, something really went wrong somewhere, but I'm glad supposedly the developers got their money. I'm not really going to go into detail about Razer's Forge console because that was also not really successful. The Ouya console services finally shut down on June 25th of 2019, and the services for the Razer Forge went down shortly afterwards. So Razer did keep the lights on for a few more years for everyone who had an Ouya box, but there wasn't anything meaningful that came out of this. Like their box also wasn't really successful. There was never another Ouya. With that shutdown, all Ouya accounts became inaccessible and games could not be purchased or downloaded, but existing downloaded games kept working. And if you had any funds left over in your account, that was not refunded. That's just gone now.
If you had those 37 cents from your 1337 payment before.
So that was the official end of the Ouya console, but there is still a group around this to keep it going. One developer named Christian Weiss developed a replacement server that allowed the store to browse and install games again. This is called the Community Ouya API server. So if you have one, you can set this up as like basically a proxy server, and it makes the console somewhat functional again.
I feel like there's a missed opportunity here to not do in the tradition of having like the replacement servers for like Nintendo Network and stuff are called Pretendo, or the like open source Pebble hardware being called Rebel, to name the community portion of Ouya support Booyah.
Ooh. Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been good. When the console was alive, there were some efforts to port like the Google Play Store to this as a software mod, so you could potentially download more games and apps through there. There were some custom ROMs. I saw one that was like based on Cyanogen mod. There was another one that was based on Android 7.1 Nougat.
Cyanogen, topic of previous Tech Tales, yes?
Yes. Yep. Go listen to the Cyanogen mod episode.
Truly one of the great episodes.
Mm-hmm. That was also a crazy tech startup story. And then there's still a forum site called ouya.world, and if you have one, it is still potentially useful as an emulation box. Again, not the most performant by any stretch of the imagination, but like you can throw some SNES games on there or something.
Yeah.
I know when people talk about the Ouya, sometimes it leads to a conclusion of the product was a failure, but it led the way for this market of low-end budget Android TV boxes, like the Fire TV sticks that are still around today, or the NVIDIA Shield TV that came, I think, 2 years after the Ouya was released. And like, I kind of get that argument, but all of those devices do different things.
Yeah.
The idea that Ouya was pitching here of what if we brought smartphone games back to the TV and made something that is first and foremost for games, that didn't really happen. The NVIDIA Shields are still around, but they're not like really for games. Everyone buys them for like a nice streaming box and Plex and things like that. And like Fire TV sticks are primarily for media streaming. There are some games on there, but that's not how most people are using them. It's true that like this hardware still exists and found a very successful role in making streaming sticks that cost $30. But the idea of like a small console for your TV, that didn't really take off. We're still kind of, the smartphone games are still on the smartphone, and there's still like traditional TV games for the TV. I don't know if there's like an industry trend that we can pinpoint Ouya as the start of.
Yeah.
As sort of a where are they now? We gotta talk about Julie. After after Ouya was sold, Julie Ehrman worked at a few more startups. One of them made a like Nintendo Switch Android console. So she did this again. She made another game console that got bought out. And she worked at a few venture capital funds. According to her LinkedIn, she is currently an advisor at Drive by DraftKings, which is apparently a venture capital fund owned by the sports gambling company DraftKings.
Wow.
That's the worst string of words I've come across in a while. That's pretty cursed.
God.
And she is also the co-founder of the Angel City Women's Soccer Club in Los Angeles.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's where we're at now. So that's Ouya.
Oh boy.
Do you have anything you'd like to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I recently relaunched my blog on 347online.me. Yeah, check that out. I'm working on a couple new big posts. Hopefully something will be up there.
Excellent. And TechTales is at techtalesshow.com on Blue Sky and at techtales@mas.to on Mastodon. The links for those are in the show notes, along with all of the sources and the videos. You should watch the IGN video. It's kind of crazy. Along with links to support TechTales if you want to do that. And thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.